So my name is Bill Evans, and I'm a vegetable and soil scientist by training. I worked for MSU for years. I've worked with Cindy Ayers, and this place, which is the Farmers Hands Market and Event Center, and T.I.M.E Incorporated, which is the nonprofit arm of Footprint Farms Group, they're helping sponsor this event today, and we welcome you. Also with T.I.M.E and Footprint Farms is Michelle Wheatley. Michelle, introduce yourself very briefly.
Really quick, I'm Michelle Wheatley, currently finishing up my PhD at Mississippi State in Agriculture Science and Extension Education, pretty much focusing in on food insecurity and just trying to get people access to good, healthy foods in some of our urban and rural areas. Born and raised from the Mississippi Delta, so pretty much when we're talking about eating healthy and the importance of food and just trying to have longevity and being healthy is kind of like at the center of my heart, because I come from families that love good food, but also had a lot of underlying health issues. So that's pretty much basically what it is that I do and a little bit about myself.
All right, thank you. You guys know that if you eat a little bit of vegetables in your diet, just a little bit more than you used to, then there's great science about how it reduces prediabetes, it reduces the need for insulin if you have diabetes, it reduces heart disease, it reduces obesity and weight-related challenges, all these things, just a little bit of extra vegetables. So I want to encourage you all to eat vegetables. And today I'm going to teach you guys how to grow a pot of tomatoes. These are tomatoes. This is a little variety called Patio. I got it from a garden center here in Jackson. I didn't grow these plants myself. I could have, I just didn't quite. I got other stuff going on. Anyway, I'm going to teach you how to grow those in this little pot right here. And you guys get to take this home today. Why are we growing tomatoes? Because they're healthy for you. And they're pretty easy to grow. There's a little variety called cherry, or called Patio. It produces a little cherry tomato. But it's going to produce dozens of them in this little pot right here. Okay? There's only a few things I need to tell you about this tomato after we get it potted up here. You're going to want to grow this in as much light as you can, because the fruit takes light to make good, sweet fruit. So we don't want this in the shade, we want this in the sun, which means you're going to have to start watering this thing maybe once or twice a day once it gets hot outside, once it starts getting warm outside. You can also grow it indoors under a bright light. And by under a bright light, I don't mean that, there's a light up in the ceiling there that's pretty bright, but it's very dim in here right now. It seems light, but it's not. If you're going to grow this under a light in the house, put the light about a foot from the plant. And as the plant gets taller, move the light up a little bit. But put a bright light right over the pot if you can do it inside. You see, off screen here we have some garden towers with lettuce growing. And you'll see I've got lights all around the lettuce. That's how much light they need. And you go in there, you put your hand in there, you'll see it's just like being at the beach. That's how much light they need. Okay? So these are relatively easy. I've got this nice potting mix here. We never grow in a pot in soil, in field soil, from the ground or the garden, because that stuff doesn't drain right in a pot, because water can't go this way and it can only go a little bit on the bottom here, right? So we always use these potting mixes which are designed for pots. At first, a little bit of this potting mix is going to come out of here. So at home, when you get this home, you're going to want to put a little saucer underneath it or something like that. Maybe one of those little aluminum cake pans or something, just to catch that water so it doesn't ruin your tabletop or anything like that. But you can set this right on the front steps or on the back patio, or as I said, you can do it indoors. It's great. Very easy stuff. This has all the nutrients we need to grow these tomatoes for a while. If they're in here for more than a month, you could water this with something like Miracle Grow or something like that. A water-soluble fertilizer, just follow the directions on the box after about 30 days, and then do that once every 2 weeks. The rest of the time, just water it with water. Well, I chose this tomato because I didn't know where everyone lived. This tomato, this little tomato plant here, is called Patio. It is designed for small pots like this. The whole plant's only going to get this big, that tall. And it's just going to be just kind of a tomato bush in here. It's not going to be one of these 8-foot garden plants. It's not going to be like Better Boy or something like that, or Marion or one of those others that would grow in the garden. Yeah, so this is going to produce small tomatoes. And when they start turning red, they're never going to get any bigger. Okay, so they're only going to, there's a little picture here. They're just little cherry tomatoes. It's about the size of a golf ball, a little smaller. So, and they're great. Cut them in half, put them in a salad, cut them in quarters, put them in a salad. They're great. They're awesome. And you can eat them out of hand too. They're going to be sweet enough that you can just pluck them out of hand. We haven't added anything to this that caused it so that you even have to wash these if you're growing these at home. You can just pop them in your mouth. But now if you spray some insecticide on them yourselves, if something happens and you got to spray something on them that you're nervous about, certainly wash the tomato before you eat it. Certainly wash the tomato before you eat it. But I filled this pot with soil, with this potting mix. Again, it's not soil, it's potting mix. We call it media or substrate now in the business. And then I didn't pack it in there, I just filled it. And I'm gonna do what we call strike it off. I'm gonna level it off just by sweeping off that extra stuff. And I'm not packing it. I am not packing it in there. I'm not squishing it down. And then all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come like this, and I'm gonna go, and I'm just taking 3 or 4 fingers there, right in the center of the pot. I'm not breaking this up at all. It's gonna be fine. I'm sticking that in there. I'm gonna bury the top of that just a little bit, and I'm gonna cinch that in there just a little bit. It's gonna feel like a sponge, but I'm not gonna mush that thing down there. Eventually, over the first couple waterings, this is gonna settle down a little bit, and you're gonna wind up with about 1/2 inch of space between the top of the pot and the top of the potting mix. And that's what you want.
I was going to ask you, I'm not an expert on potting anything, but I always did when I pot anything, you put some rocks over the holes, so the dirt don't come out as fast.
Yeah, we could, if we wanted to, we could put some rocks in the bottom. They don't recommend the rocks anymore, but they do recommend you could get a coffee filter, and I didn't bring any coffee filters today, but putting a coffee filter in the bottom here would work perfectly for that, because that paper would trap it. In fact, if people wanted me to, I could cut little squares out of this, and that would work the same. I mean, I could just tear this up like this, and we could go like this, and we can, so to cover those drainage holes, this will reduce the soil coming out of the bottom, and we can do this. That's a good idea. We're gonna do that. It'll drain, it'll weep right through the soil. It'll weep right through this and drip through this. But we won't lose as much soil out the bottom now. So now I've covered up most of those holes. And then I'm just gonna put some of that soil in there like that. And I'm gonna do it with my hands because that's how I work.
Yeah, you can. Then this is the thing, and she just mentioned something, and Dr. Bill, it'd be great if you can touch on it, about how it's very hard to get rid of them once you plant them outside. Like they come back continuously, like as the years progress, the cherry tomatoes.
Yes.
Because even at the farm, they don't go anywhere. Like it's been years, and we've even tried to, figure out some ways to reduce, but yeah, they don't.
Yeah, the cherry tomatoes make a lot of seeds, and so then they become weeds in our farm.
Right.
We have tomato weeds. We have hundreds and hundreds of tomato plants growing, because we rotate our crops, meaning we don't plant tomatoes in the same spot every year, so that we don't get as many diseases in the soil. So next year we might have cucumbers where the tomatoes were, but there'll be weeds, tomato weeds growing in the cucumber patch that we have to get out and treat them as weeds. Because a weed is just a plant in a place that we don't want it.
Right.
That's the only thing that a weed is. We're gonna water this here today before you go home. Then you guys are gonna water it anytime you can stick your finger in the soil mix, in this potting mix, and it's dry down to the first knuckle. Right, just down to your first knuckle of your finger there, right? So it's gotta be dry to the first knuckle there, right? And then you're gonna water it. If you do it too much more than that, you're gonna overwater it and you could rot the plant. We like to water in the morning, and then maybe on a hot day we put a little more in before 3 or 4 in the afternoon, so it dries out, the leaves dry off before it gets to be nightfall. We don't want the leaves to be wet at night, because as Cindy says, you never want to put the baby to bed wet. Right? You don't put the baby to bed wet. Okay? That's Cindy Ayers' line, and I like using it. I use it all the time, and I have to pay her $0.25 each time I use it. So that's it. Watering is all you should have to do with this. If you get some insects on it, reach back out to me or someone else, or go to a good garden center and say, I got this going on with this, how can I treat it? What can I do? There's both organic and non-organic solutions to most insect problems these days. The thing you might see on these, you might see aphids, you might see whiteflies. That's about the ones that you're going to see in this pot. This pot will start flowering in about 10 days from today. It'll start flowering in about 10 days, and it's about 30 days from the opening of the flower to the time you'll be eating tomatoes. So in about 45 days, you'll be eating tomatoes out of this thing, okay? If you can't keep up with the watering, if it gets too hot in this small pot, you can move it into a bigger pot. Just make sure you use potting mix and not field soil. Go buy some potting mix from one of the big box stores or one of your local garden centers that you love, or something like, the Ace Hardware stores around here have good potting mixes. And just repot it into a bigger pot, and that'll reduce the number of times you have to water it. Okay? So the next thing to do on this is to water it, and I'm going to get her to come over here and just water it over this. We're going to take these all over to the side and water them for you a little bit. Question in the back, yes.
What kind of potting soil you say?
Something like Miracle-Gro potting mix. Any of the ones that they sell in the good garden centers for pots will work for this. And with or without nutrients. That's good, thank you. And you can feel the difference in weight of this. Now, I'm going to have this. Who wants to come up and do this? So you grab a pot. Well, grab a pot. Grab a pot. One right in the center. So you fill that up. You can use the scoop or you can use your hands. That's great. That's perfect. Now teach her how to put her fingers in there, Michelet, and get that. I'm sorry. No, do not. Just we're going to push this down just a little bit to set it, but you're not going to mush the soil down. Okay? And then we're going to water these all later. So you can take it back to your desk now. We'll water them on the way out.